We are recording. Um, Let me start by welcoming everybody. Happy to have you guys. Sorry it took a hot minute um, for the awards to be given. You know, there's so many folks that ha- are in the background on this program that it's hard to get everybody together to keep the ball rolling and make some decisions. And with the government shutdown, and there was like a whole lot of interesting things happen at the end of last year. Um, so let me start by sharing my screen. Everybody let me know if they can see that.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, awesome. Let's see. Here. Let me move over this way. It was on the right screen this morning. Now it's on this screen. Okay, bear with me. This is very um laid back. It's not anything hardcore. Like you won't have to, it's very casual. So let me start by introducing myself. My name is Trisha DePadro. I've been with the Georgia Department of Community Affairs almost 10 years. I've exclusively worked on this program since inception. I also managed the Job Tax Credit Program and the State Opportunity Zone Program. So like I said, I'm going to try to stick as best I can to today's agenda. Um, I'll try to cut where I can, or um, some things might be extensive if we've got a lot of questions. So we'll just plug forward. All right. You all have a copy of the agenda. We're gonna 10 o'clock to 11-ish. We're gonna do just Rule Zone 101 basics. You probably know some of the basics, but we'll just reiterate it. And several times, several things are going to be restated. And I know I hear better by hearing it several times, and I learn really well by example. So at the end of this, you will have this recording, which will all be, allotted to be able to watch again. And you'll have the slideshow handouts. I'll email those to you guys. So from 11 to 12, we'll go through the rules on incentives from a business perspective. And that kind of gets in the weeds, and that's where it helps to have something like this to go back to and review several times if you need to. And I'm always here for questions. A lot of times I'm used to CPAs and other people in industry wanting a written response for their files. So a lot of times emailing me is the best way to get a hold of me. And then you're in the queue to be answered. I always take voicemails and emails in the order that I get them so that I'm not bumping anybody ahead or forgetting somebody or whatever. So that being said, we'll break at noon for lunch, and then we're going to have our friendly team leader from Thomaston, Taylor Smith's going to join us for about 45 minutes. Then we're going to, about 30 minutes, talk about promoting your rural zone and your annual reporting requirements. And then at the end of that, 30 minutes, we'll have about 15 minutes for more questions if there's anything else comes up that you can think of. If not, as I said, feel free to email me. I'm more than happy to answer your questions, or we can set up a time to jump on a Teams call or something like that. And go from there. Then we'll adjourn about 2:30. So as I said, I want to welcome everybody. The new the 7 newest rural zone communities, Alma, Barnesville, and I'm from Massachusetts. So if I say your name wrong, I am so sorry. The name of your city: Blairsville, Elberton, Folkston, Grantville, and Somerville. Can the folks from Alma jump on and introduce themselves? I'll silence
Sure.
my mic.
Sure. Good morning. This is Kevin Ellis. I'm the director of the Bacon County Development Authority for Bacon County, and also the Downtown Development Authority director for the city of Alma. Just happy to be part of the group and looking to see how we can use these incentives to grow some of our downtown areas and businesses.
Good morning. My name is Shauna Smith. I'm the city accountant with the city of Barnesville. I am also looking forward to working with.
We hear you, Miss Smith. We can hardly hear you. Can you speak up?
Can you hear me now? Is that
A little
better?
bit better.
Let me see if I can adjust my volume.
I'm going to see if I can adjust mine too. Maybe mine's messed up.
Yeah, mine's all the way up. Let's see.
Just turn mine back on. Back up a little bit. Maybe that was it. Go ahead, hon.
Did that help? Can you hear me?
It helped a little bit.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is
No worries.
Shauna Smith. I'm the city accountant for the city of Barnesville. I too am looking forward to working with the program to enhance and grow our downtown community.
And I'm Kelly Hughes. I'm the mayor of Barnesville, and we are just so thrilled to have received this designation. And we're looking forward to working with our businesses and creating a fantastic downtown area and just having a great community for our people. So thank you.
Blairsville, anybody from Blairsville?
Hey there, this is Kristen Bentley from Blairsville. I'm the Downtown Development Director, and I'm sitting here with the Mayor of Blairsville, the City Clerk from Blairsville, and our DDA Chair is on the way. We're really grateful for this designation and can't wait to see our downtown become an even more thriving place. So very, very appreciative.
Super, super. Elberton?
Hey, my name is Caitlin Dye. I'm the Executive Director of the Development Authority for Elbert County, City of Elberton, and City of Bowman.
No, my direct boss, Brock Smith. No?
I don't know of anybody by Brock Smith. I'm
Okay.
almost 2 years into the role, so I'm still
Okay.
learning a lot of new faces. So that name doesn't ring a bell, but that's not to say he's not here.
That's where his parents were raised, and they've both passed, unfortunately, but he lives in Cumming area now. So I just wondered if you happen to know him. Are you the
Gotcha.
only one
I am
from
not from
Elberton?
Elberton.
Okay.
No, we've got one more on, I believe.
Any Elberton folks left?
I
Maybe they're
sent it
joining
over
a
to
little bit later.
Crystal. Maybe. She's our Main Street director.
Okay.
I thought she popped up, but she may have left and is coming back on.
No worries, and we're recording it, like I said, so you can rewatch it. Anybody from Folkston?
Hi, I'm Melody Martindale. I'm the Executive Director of the Charlton County Okefenokee Chamber of Commerce, and I'm really excited about our new rural zone designation.
Awesome. Awesome. Glad to have you.
Hi, I'm Abby Taylor. I'm the Executive Director of Charlton County Development Authority, and I'm super excited to be partnering with the city to be able to get this done. We're very excited.
Somerville, Grantville? Oh,
Good morning. I'm Al
morning.
Grieshager, the former city manager of Grantville. I have retired, but it is in good hands. Grantville is with Robbie Higgins, our new city manager, who's on the call, Betty Ann Rooks, who's on the call, our city clerk, and Dennis Hanthorn, our grants writer who put this all together. So we've got the Grantville team ready to go. We're excited about the opportunity and look forward to enhancing our historic downtown to the fact that you will want to come see it.
Woohoo.
Needless
have
to say,
met
we're
Dennis.
very excited. We're very excited.
Yes, yes. And I've met you, Dennis, so
Yes.
we're
Thank you for
old
your help.
chums.
Thank you for your help.
You're welcome. My pleasure, my pleasure. Okay, let's get back to the slideshow. I'm not terribly technically savvy, so okay. Can you guys see my screen again?
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so the purpose of today is to understand your roles on designation, the roles of the team leader and the team. You're going to understand the 3 rural zone tax credits and how to walk businesses through the process of utilizing the tax credits. Getting started in your community where you begin, and ways to promote your rural zone. So these are the 7 rural zones that you guys are all under together. As you can see, it's fairly split out across the state. So that, combined with the fact that things came so late into being, is why we're here on a Teams call. Typically, I would kind of pick somewhere in the middle and everybody could join there, but it was just so late. I wanted you guys to hit the ground running as soon as you could into this year of your designation beginning. So the rural zone became a bill through the acronym stands for Revitalizing Underdeveloped Rural Areas Legislation. It was a House Bill 73. It was signed into law in May of 2017. And the purpose was to incentivize investment, job creation, and economic development in rural downtowns. So the goals of the program are to assist in revitalizing your rural downtowns by offering incentives designated within the rural zone area in the areas of job creation, commercial investment, and business activities. The 3 Georgia rural zone income tax credits that go with those incentives are the job tax credit, the investment tax credit, and the rehabilitation tax credit. And now when I'm referring to the job tax credit, I'm referring to the job tax credit under the rural zone program, not the regular Georgia job tax credit. These are the current rural zone cities. I believe there are 37 of them right now active. Some of them are in their last year, and you guys are in your first year, and everywhere in between. So the first rural zone communities were named for January 1st, 2018, and their 5-year designation ended on December 31st, 2022. Now, some of the details, the nitty-gritty of stats I have are from this first set. It's been hard to recapture some of the same statistics as I have for these cities, just based on how the information's presented and such. So some of the information later in this presentation you'll see are from those first 9 cities. Of those 9 cities, the vacancy rates dropped substantially. The average vacancy rate in those first applications were 26% vacancy rate in their downtown. Vacancy rate at the end of their designation was down to 12.9%. So the overall vacancy rate dropped by 50%. Cornelia's vacancy rate dropped from 37% down to 20%. Springfield's dropped from 16% down to 4%. Perry's dropped from 30% down to 2%. And Bainbridge's dropped from 24% down to 5%. So those are pretty good stats for the program. So in January of 2018, Bainbridge had 41 vacant and vacant blighted structures. In November of 2020, just 3 years later, they only had 15% vacant and vacant blighted structures. Bainbridge is, as we stated on the earlier slide, their vacancy rate in 2018 was 24%, and it was down to 9% at the end of 2020. So here we're back to Bainbridge. We're looking at Eagle Saloon Suites, and that was when it was vacant. This is it now. There's 2 residential apartments on top. There's 2 commercial buildings underneath, and it received the Michael L. Starr Award in 2020. Pretty proud of that, and they were down to 9 vacant and blighted structures at the end of their designation. So this is an example of the blight removal in downtown Bainbridge. This is before the building was rehabbed. This is after it was rehabbed. Actually, I'm sorry. Yes, okay, I'm sorry. So, again, I'm sorry, I thought I had the wrong slide. This is in Cornelia. It is the Gathering Box. So, I have to look at my notes for this one. This was a gal named Cagney Meads. She had a charcuterie board business, which she just ran out of her home. Finally decided, listen, I need more room. I need more space. And this was a little corner. As you can see in this picture, if you could see my arrow circling, it's pretty narrow, but it's part of a building that another business wasn't using. So they leased this out to her, and she has her business out of this beautiful space now. It's gorgeous. And I guess the charcuterie boards are delicious too. Let's see what else she started. Okay, so there's also a few tables for family and friends to gather around. And that was for her growing business. Here is the community brew and tap. Let's see. This was the before pictures, how it is just not utilized, and it looks pretty dumpy, actually, if you ask me. Here's the before picture is this one over in the top right corner, and these 2 other pictures are before and after pictures of this gorgeous space. Isn't that beautiful? So these are more after pictures. So, okay, let's get started talking about the rural zone tax incentives. So the job tax credit is there's 3 types. There's a job tax credit, and it's related for business owners that creates at least 2 net new jobs, or an existing business already in your downtown if they're adding additional jobs. So they've got to also hire at least 2 net new employees within the rural zone. So if they have another branch or another location that's not within the rural zone, this would have to be based on the one that's in the rural zone. There's an investment tax credit, and this is for investors who purchase a building within your designated rural zone. Those empty buildings, those rundown buildings, those vacant buildings, the storage buildings that owners of them are using as storage. Maybe we can light a fire under them to sell. And the last type of credit is the rehabilitation tax credit. And this credit's used to offset development costs, which is materials and labor associated with rehabbing a property located within the rural zone. So let's start with the basics. What is a tax credit? Tax credit is a dollar for dollar reduction of the income tax owed. And tax credits generally save you more in taxes than deductions. Deductions only reduce the amount of your income that's subject to income tax, whereas credits directly reduce your tax bill, the amount of tax you actually owe. It's a dollar for dollar reduction. So the rural zone tax credits are a state of Georgia income tax credit. They're not federal. The credits cannot be bought or sold as other credits. There's other credits in Georgia that can be sold, such as perhaps the film tax credit. So the rural zone tax credits cannot be bought or sold. They're non-refundable also, meaning you can use the credits up to the amount of your tax liability, then the remainder is a carry forward to be used against future income tax liabilities, Georgia income tax liabilities. So it's not just for new businesses, as I mentioned, but it's also for the expansion of existing businesses. So the key to the rural zone tax credits is job creation. So without job creation, none of the tax credits are triggered under the rural zone. So job creation is the key to unlocking all three of those rural zone tax credits that I mentioned: the job tax credit, the investment tax credit, and the rehabilitation tax credit. So for the job tax credit, let's break it down by each tax credit under the rural zone. So for the job tax credit, the threshold is 2 eligible net new jobs. These jobs must receive W-2s and they must be created in the same tax year. The credit amount is $2,000 for each FTE, full-time equivalent job. Now, FTE is an aggregate of employee hours worked totaling 40 hours per week, which is the equivalent of one full-time job. So, for an example, 4 part-time workers each work 10 hours a week. 4 workers times 10 hours is 40 hours or 1 FTE. So 2 eligible net new jobs, whether that's the owner who works 40 hours a week, or even if they work 50 or 60, they're only going to count for 40 hours, or a combination of part-timers working for different amounts of the 40 hours. So eligible businesses that we want to see in a downtown are going to be professional services, CPAs, attorneys, light manufacturing, and retail. So they fall under these North American Industry Classification System codes of 31, 32, and the like, what I've got on the screen. As I said, you'll get a copy of this stack when we're through. So those are the type of businesses we want to see in a downtown: law offices, gift shops, restaurants, veterinary offices, breweries, bakeries, bed and breakfasts, banks. So the job tax credit is limited to 20 net new jobs, so $40,000 credit per year. Now, a business can create more jobs, but for purposes of the rural zone tax credits and the job tax credit part of that, they're only going to get credit for 20 net new jobs. The credit can be taken for 5 years as long as the jobs are maintained. So they'll get $2,000 per job per year for 5 years. So, like I said, let's learn by example. It's easier to learn by example. 2 sisters decide to open a home health care facility in a building located within the boundaries of Elberton's rural zone. The 2 sisters work 40 hours a week and hire 4 high school students who each work 20 hours a week. Now, what's the credit for them. I will give you also a list of the acceptable NAICS codes, when I send all the other materials out to you guys. So the NAICS code for a home health care business is 621610, if you didn't know that off the top of your head. Here's the listing of allowable NAICS codes. And as you can see, 621610 is not on the list. So they will not get credit for their jobs created because they're not a type of business that is on the acceptable list of types of businesses. However, later on, we will discuss an avenue in which they potentially can become accepted just for your downtown only. So let's start the example over. So two sisters open a women's clothing boutique on the first floor of a building located within the boundaries of Elberton's rural zone. Is this NAICS code eligible? Is the first thing you're going to look up? Yes, it's NAICS code 44812, women's clothing store, in case you didn't know that off the top of your head either. So the two sisters work 40 hours a week and hire 4 high school students who each work 20 hours per week. So let's calculate this example. So what is the tax credit over 5 years if all the net new jobs are maintained? How many net new jobs have been created? 2 new full-time jobs at 40 hours a week is 80 hours. Plus 4 part-time jobs at 20 hours a week is another 80 hours. So that is 4 net new full-time job equivalents, 160 hours. So you've got 4 full-time equivalents. You've got 4 jobs created. Fantastic. So what is the business's tax credit over 5 years if all 4 of the net new jobs are maintained? So we've got year 1 through 5. Like we said, the 4 jobs are maintained. They get $2,000 a year. So they get, $2,000 per job, and that's $8,000 a year. They've got $40,000 of credit over 5 years. So here's a couple of FAQs on the job creation. So who can create the net new jobs? So the owner of the building can create a business that hires the net new jobs. Or the owner of the building can lease out their purchased building to a tenant that's going to create the net new jobs. So who gets to take the job tax credit? So the business that is creating the jobs will get to take the job tax credit. So in that case, in the case of the owner leasing it out, they don't get the job tax credit, but they will potentially get other credits on their investment. We'll talk about that later in the next credit. So to summarize the job tax credit, we've got 2 net new jobs. They've got to receive W-2s, and they must be created in the same tax year. They get $2,000 credit per each net new full-time equivalent job. And the business must have an eligible NAICS code. And the total of the job tax credits cannot exceed $40,000 a year or 20 net new jobs. That's not stopping them from creating more jobs, though. And the credit can be taken for 5 years as long as the jobs are maintained. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourselves and ask away.
Hi, this is Kevin Ellis from Alma. Just to clarify, so if there's an existing business that's located in our rural zone area, and say they have 10 employees, but sometime during the next 5 years, let's say they expand to 15 employees. They haven't done anything with their, I guess, their property as far as beautification or building anything new, but they've just added new jobs in their current facility. They'd be eligible for those as long as those NAICS codes are eligible.
Yes. Anybody else? Nope. Okay, we're going to move on. The investment tax credits. So the investment tax credit is equal to 25% of the purchase price of the property, not to exceed $125,000. The building purchase or the property purchase must be after January 1st of the year the community's designation begins. So anybody in your rural zones, they have to make the purchase. It has to be made January 1st, 2026 or later within your 5-year designation period. So an eligible business must be located in the investment property and create and maintain a minimum of 2 net new equivalent jobs. So that's where I say the jobs come in. They trigger all of the credits being able to be taken. So until 2 net new jobs are created in that building that the person has purchased, they can't take the investment tax credit. They are, waiting for maybe a tenant or somebody is going to create the net new jobs, the 2 net new jobs. And in this case, the investment tax credit will be prorated equally in 3 installments over 3 taxable years, beginning with the year the property is placed in service and the jobs are created. So this part of this credit changed to 3 years starting January 1st, 2025. So prior year time frame was 5 year. You'd have to divide the purchase price over 5 years, but they've updated that to 3 years starting January 1st, 2025. So that's a part of your time frame as well. So let's go into an example of the investment tax credit. A local developer purchases a 2-story, 5,000 square foot building located within the Grantville rural zone for $400,000. His plans are to renovate the entire building into 4 apartments on the 1st and 2nd floors. What is the amount of the investment tax credit? Okay, so in this case, the investment tax credit would be 0 because 2 jobs are not being created on the property. So the job creation, like I said, and I will say till I'm blue in the face, is the most important part of the credits coming together. The jobs have to be created before any of the credits can be taken. So let's redo this example. The local developer purchases the same building and its plans are to renovate the 2nd floor into 2 apartments, and the 1st floor will be leased out to a new law office with 2 net new full-time employees. So what is the total amount of his investment tax credit? Since he purchased the building, he didn't create the jobs. So 25% of the $400,000 purchase price is $100,000. Now, what is the developer's investment tax credit over 3 years if the 2 net new jobs are maintained? $100,000 divided by the 3-year proration, it's $33,333. $33,333. Lots of 3s there. It confused me for a hot minute. So starting 1/1/2026, if that building is put into service and the jobs are created for 2026, 2027, and 2028, that developer could have a $33,333 a year credit against his Georgia income taxes. A few FAQs on the investment tax credit. can an investor who purchases vacant land within the designated rural zone receive the investment tax credit? Yes. Can the investor take the rehabilitation tax credit for the cost of constructing a new building on the vacant land? And the answer is no. We haven't gone over the rehab tax credit yet, but that is no, because infill is not covered under the rural zone rehab tax credits. So let's summarize this one. The investment tax credit's equivalent to 25% of the purchase price, not to exceed $125,000. It must be purchased after January 1st for you guys of 2026. And the eligible business must be located within the investment property and create and maintain a minimum of the 2 net new full-time equivalent jobs. Any questions related to this credit? It's a little bit faster, but we'll be going over this stuff all day. So, well, for the next several hours. Any questions on that? You can unmute.
Hi,
This
Kevin
is-
Ellis again. I'm just only asking all the questions, I guess.
No worries.
If you said no infill development, if you got a building that is too far from rehabilitation and that building is torn down and you rebuild a building, is that qualified or not?
Be a discussion. We'll get into that a little bit more in some slides coming up with the rehab credit discussion, and then we can revisit that question, or it may kind of be answered within that presentation, part of the presentation.
Okay, and this one more follow-up from the
Sure.
the rural zone job tax credit of $2,000. For example, Bacon County is in the Georgia jobs tax credit tier of a tier 2, which is a $3,000 job tax credit. Are you saying that that business could claim the Georgia job tax credit of $3,000 plus the $2,000 rural zone job tax credit, or is it one or the other?
It's one or the other. They can't be stacked, but the qualifications under the regular job tax credit program are more stringent. There is a wage requirement, an hours requirement, and health insurance. So that's a lot more stringent than this. This just requires you to have the hours, to add up to be equivalents. I mean, more than one. There's no such thing as a full-time equivalent within the regular job tax credit program. So this primarily is more for the mom and pop shops that aren't going to offer insurance and that kind of thing, to give them some kind of a benefit. So it's either or.
Sure, understood. Got it. Thank you.
Sounds good. You're welcome.
Tricia, question. This is Dennis Hanthorne from Grantville. Let's say that we have a business that has a coffee shop and a business that we have a restaurant. And in that 5-year period, they go out of business and then something comes back. What is this? Use it or lose it? Like for instance, the same building, I'm thinking of a place in Grantville that was a coffee shop, still being used as a coffee shop, but not by the same owner and business, but it's still a coffee shop. And so how does that all work in that 5-year period? Does that make sense?
Does. If the business sold, closes, their credits end there. However, if a new business comes in, even if it's the same type of business, and they're within that 5-year time frame, then by all means, they can claim the job tax credit as well. Or if it's been sold, if someone sells it, their credits end. Say they still had a year left on their investment tax credit, it's gone for them. But someone new purchasing it will be allowed to take the investment tax credit as well, as long as the 2 net new jobs are being created.
So this is about creating new jobs. So if I'm owning the coffee shop and then someone comes and I give it up and someone comes in and turns it into a restaurant, that still falls under that this business, this building was part of the rural zone. And there might be only maybe 3 years left, but there's 3 years.
business loses it, but the new business can start their own
Gotcha.
credits.
But they may only have 3 years, depending on how long that business.
No, they will get a full 5 years.
Oh,
As
okay.
long as they start their credits before the expiration of that rule zone.
Oh, so, you know, you have 2 per year, that's 10 per the 5 years. Within that 5-year period, in that 10, we could, I'm just making this up, have 5 of these businesses go out of business, and it could end up being 15 or even in some places 20, you know,
Right.
because,
Right.
okay, that's good to know. That's good to know.
Keeping in mind that it's not like double dipping to Georgia Department of Revenue, because one business is ending, so their
Right.
credits end. So someone new starts, they get to take it.
Yeah, with the selling opportunities here, I, as a business owner, can get a tax credit for my employees, and that's what you're selling to them.
Yes.
And,
Yes.
and, you know, it might only be 3 years, but the point is you got this tax credit for that period of time.
Right. And
That's
they
good.
get the full 5 years of their credit. Even if they
Oh,
come
that's
in.
right. So then the 5
last
years has added
business-
on to that. So if they're in
Right.
third year, so this, all right, great.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So it could be in the very last year, because sometimes someone purchases the building, it takes them a hot minute to get
Right.
the construction going and then get someone in there. It could be the last year of the 5 years. Say, you know, something catastrophic happened like COVID again, and then they, you know, the last year they're actually got everything up and running. Someone is in that business, creating jobs, then everybody still gets their full 3 years on the investment tax credit. They'll get their full 5 years for jobs created.
Good, great, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Anybody else have any more questions on the investment tax credit? I know we went over that one quickly, but like I said, we'll be going over these things several times today. All right, we're moving on to the rehabilitation tax credit. So this is equivalent to 30% of qualified rehab costs, not to exceed $150,000. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the qualified rehab costs include labor and materials costs. So again, an eligible business must be located in the investment property and create and maintain a minimum of 2 net new full-time equivalent jobs to release this rehab tax credit for the rehabber. The credit is going to be prorated equally in 3 installments over 3 taxable years, beginning with the taxable year in which the property is placed in service, when all of the rehabbing is done and the building is allowed to be occupied. So a taxpayer cannot use the same qualified rehab costs to generate any additional state income tax credits. So in other words, you couldn't have the taxpayer use the Historic Preservation Division's state income tax credit for rehabilitated historic property. They'd have to take this rehab tax credit or historic preservations. And the project.
So question here, is
Go
that,
ahead.
all right, so the rehabilitation tax credit, I actually have 2 questions. So if someone comes into Grantville and they're gonna invest $500,000 in a
Mhm.
renovation, it's $150,000 per year. And if they spent that $500,000 over a 2-year period, they can only take the credit of the 30% of $150,000 each year, correct?
$150,000 for the project costs. So it'd be the whole project.
Whether
So
it's
say
1
they
year.
had, say they were equivalent to, say they had $100,000 in rehab costs the first year and then decided, oh, this part of the building's not working well for us. Let's put another 50,000 in the next year. Then they would meet their limit.
Gotcha. Oh, so it's $150,000 for the project.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. And then the employee benefit, that is in addition to that.
Yes. Yes. That's
All right,
separate.
maybe
and
you gave
added.
that earlier, but it would be great to say of all these, when you stack them up on each, you know, how much is the opportunity here? And that's probably gonna come, but that'd be great.
Right. I'll give an example of that in a little bit, Dennis.
Great, great. All right, thank you.
Sounds good. So the project also must adhere to the rural zone rehab standards. And
Chrissy,
I'll
I
go
have a
over
question
those
about the
in a minute.
timing.
Yes, ma'am.
If the project, knowing that we were getting it started, pulled a building permit, if a building permit was pulled prior to the roll zone taking effect, but their rehab took place, a year into it, and then say a year or more into the roll zone taking effect, when the rehab is completed, would they be eligible or not eligible?
Would be eligible. You're going to have to wait until like the receipt, the date on the receipts of the rehab costs are what
Okay.
matter in that case.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I always,
You're welcome.
now that we're in it, the things I get hung up are the timing.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
thank you so much.
No worries. And that's why I say I'm always open to emails, or if we need to
Mhm.
jump on a call or something like that, because you're going to listen to this whole presentation. And
Mhm.
then once you get out there, they're going to give you like 100,000 scenarios to one. So what
Yes.
you guys are going to experience when you leave here, don't let that set you in panic mode. Just say, I'm going to find out. I'll get back to you. I don't know the answer to that.
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so let's go into a rehab tax credit example. So a local developer purchases a 2-story, 5,000 square foot building located within Alma's rural zone. Spends $150,000 to renovate the second floor into 2 apartments and $150,000 to renovate the first floor and front facade. The first floor will be leased out to a new law office with 2 net new full-time employees. So let's go through this example. What is the amount of his rehab tax credit? Rehab costs are $300,000. Go ahead. Someone have a question? Okay. The rehab costs are $300,000, and 30% of that is $90,000. So the total rehab credit for them is $90,000. And what's their rehab tax credit over the 3 years if the 2 net new jobs are maintained? That's 90,000 divided by 3 years. So they're going to get $30,000 a year for their rehab credits. So rehab tax credits are based on historic buildings, which you guys have, that are 50 years or older. Get this. 1976 is historic. I'm sorry, that just sounds like 25 years ago to me, but whatever. All right, here are those lovely rehabilitation standards I mentioned. Like I said, you guys are going to get copies of all this, so don't worry about having to memorize any of this on day one. So the property is going to be used for its historic purpose, or be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building and the site, and its site and environment. The historic character of the property should be retained and preserved. When applicable, the removal of historic materials or alteration of features should be avoided unless other solutions are not deemed viable. So each property should be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural elements from other buildings, shall be avoided. Properties change over time, so the changes that have acquired historic significance in their own right should be retained and preserved. Distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize a property should be preserved. Deteriorated historic features should be repaired rather than replaced when practical. Where the severity of deterioration requires replacement of a distinctive feature, the new feature should match the old in design, color, texture, and other visual qualities, and where possible, materials. There's 4 more, guys. Chemical or physical treatments such as sandblasting that cause damage to historical materials should not be used. The surface cleaning should be undertaken using the gentlest means possible. Significant archaeological resources affected by a project should be protected and preserved if possible, and the resources should not be disturbed. Mitigation measures should be undertaken. New additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction should not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work should be differentiated from the old and should be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity. New additions or adjacent or related new construction should be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. So if the property being rehabilitated is within a designated local historic district, subject to provisions specified by the community's Historic Preservation Commission, a certificate of appropriateness issued by the HPC will be constituted as meeting the required rehab standards for the rural zone programs. Rural zone program. And I'm not sure how many of you have historic preservation commissions. So based on that, you either use the rehab standards for the rural zone program or your rehab standards. So it's going to be incumbent upon the investor or the entity, as well as you guys, the local government, to document compliance with standards, whether they're your own standards or the rural zone programs, rehabilitation standards. Any questions on that? So you guys know if your community has a historic preservation commission that reviews proposals for rehab work in your downtown. So then you guys could issue a COA, and that will be accepted by DCA and or revenue. So if not, then you need DCA to work with you and review everything prior to the work even beginning. And I'll tell you about that. Submitting rehab work for review. So you're going to submit a current image of the building and give the building address. Provide drawings or renderings of proposed exterior rehab work. Provide the date the building was constructed and the source of that information. And provide historic photographs of the building if available. You might have that in your archives or something. Anybody have questions on that one? That one's a little more extensive, I'd say. Anybody have questions on that one?
Hey,
So,
Kevin,
go ahead.
Kevin again, maybe,
No worries.
maybe you answered this and I didn't catch it, but
It's okay.
If you have a building that, sure, it's very old, but it's too far past rebuilding, but the owner of the property wants to rebuild that building in the same correct time period, construction and architecture, would that be eligible or no? Because you're having to take down the old, which is not serviceable.
Would be with me a situation, and we would present it as such, probably get whether it's the fire people, the fire marshal, or whomever to say that this is not inhabitable or fixable, the wood's all rotted or whatever it was made out of, we would be able to work together to work through it. And it very well could be. I think we've had one or two situations since 2018, which, that's a long time that it's been approved or approached to be approved. It's been approached and approved. because they were so bad. I know we had one that was, I think they had something on the exterior that we had to put a parking lot there or extend their parking lot because there was no possible way to do something with it. I'd have to look back at all the records. Over 7 years is a lot of time. So, it's not out of the realm of possibility, Kevin. Do you have
Sure,
something in
we'll cross
mind?
that, we'll cross that bridge and I'll send you some pictures of the building. It may just
Exactly.
be they're able to, might be able to keep 2 old brick walls, but the others have to be
Right.
torn down, and they can save those 2 and build out. That's just,
Right.
we'll cross it when it comes up.
Sounds good. It sounds like you have a building in mind though, right?
Yes.
All right. I'll be looking forward to that.
Tracy, I have 2 rehab questions. Part of one you already answered for me. So one, if the rehab, if we do have our own Historic Preservation Commission, our process and everything for certificate of appropriateness, and this is one that I have, coming up. The rehab is underway, and before pulling any permits, they did have to get their certificate of appropriateness and everything with the HPC. That being said, do they, need to, go through the approval process through DCA, or does it suffice for us to, when we go to certify, let you know that, this did go through all of our required processes with the HPC prior to rehab?
You could just tell me in an email or whatever, and
Okay.
it's fine as long as you guys have vetted it. Then it's good enough for us.
Yeah.
And just keep those copious records in case something comes up with Department of Revenue. I don't know how often they
Yeah.
pull an audit on these credits. They won't. They don't tell us anything. It's hard enough to get reports out of them when required.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
if push comes to shove, then at least you have the copious records. If
Yes.
the owner should, or the person that made the changes, they should have copious records, but they may call you in to back up whatever they say or whatever, which
Yes.
by all means you have if you've issued them a COA.
Yes. And the second question, and part of this you've already answered for me, of, in the instance where you've had a rehab, but then they're going to lease to the actual business that then will create the 2 jobs, which is most of the case of what we have going on here. And yet the form to certify asks, for the business. And you had let me know that I need to make sure that it's the taxpayer that is then put on the form so they can match it to them. So should I put, where it says business, I should put the property owner who's the taxpayer, but then maybe in parentheses put, leasing to such and such business, so that separately when the property owner goes to apply for their rehab credit, it'll match up to it. And then separately, the employer, which is the separate business, goes to match up to it. Both can connect to that.
For how much matching DOR is doing, but there's a line on the certification form that says business creating the jobs. So that will be down there. But then whoever is the one that's going to take any of the credits, whether it's the job, the rehab, the investment, or all 3, that name needs to be on the top of the form for them. So say it's Joe Blow owns CC Coffee Shop, and CC Coffee Shop is creating the jobs. That business is going to go at least in the one creating the jobs. But say he somehow has a sole proprietorship on it, he needs to put his name on the top. The top line needs to be the person's whose income tax form it's going to go on, or business.
What if there's sort of 2 entities, because the one that's bought the property and it's doing the rehab is one person, but then separately, the one that is leasing and creating the jobs and redeeming the the job tax credit are two separate. Should we do two separate certifications or
Yes.
just on the one?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So
Two
each
separate.
business will do
Gotcha.
it. The investor will do his,
Yep.
and then he'll put who's creating the jobs, and then the job creator is just going to put theirs. They don't have to allude to the investor or rehabber or anything like that. But potentially a rehabber could also be the business leasing the space. What if they get in the space and it's not 100% what they need, and
Yeah.
they're adding labor and materials, they're incurring a cost, then they can also
Yeah.
potentially be a rehabber.
Yeah. In our case, we have two separate, we have several projects that are this way where there's one, it's one project, but the one
Right.
that's going to be redeeming the rehab credit is going to be different than the business that is leasing it and creating the jobs. So for that one project, we'll do two separate certifications, one for the rehab. Gotcha. Now I get it.
And there could be three. One could invest, one could rehab, and one could, it could be all kinds of different combinations. But yeah, anybody that wants to claim any of these three credits has to fill out that form.
Okay.
And
That
we'll
helps
talk
me
more
understand.
about that form too.
Okay. Very good. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? So can all three rural zone tax credits be combined? Yes. So one person can take all three, or like we just said, one person could take one, another person could take one, and maybe no one rehabs. Maybe someone just invests and someone creates jobs. So it could be any of those combinations. Okay, so let's talk about, let's see how we're doing on time. I don't even know okay, I think we're almost done with this presentation. So we'll just keep plugging through. Bainbridge's Southern Philosophy Brewing Company. Okay, this was in Bainbridge in the Fleming Building. It was built in the 1880s on their downtown square. The company purchased for their business. The company ended up that was running the business, which actually is the person that bought the building. Sorry. They purchased quality local ingredients, supporting farmers in Georgia and rural areas. Initially, the company produced three main beers, as well as seasonal rotating beers for consumers looking for something new and unique. Once they've built brand recognition, they're going to move into commercial distribution, and they created three jobs. Let's go through there. So that's the building. It's kind of a skinny building. Here it is, all torn down. Now, this right picture is looking from the back of this first picture. It's looking out the back of the building. I think that's kind of a cool, all the windows. Floors are gorgeous, and the walls too. So this is after the rehab. This is what Southern Philosophy Brewing Company looks like. Packed house. I think this is the one where I think the alleyway, there was something wrong with electrical or water or something down there. So they had to repave it, and they wanted to make sure that that was covered in rehab costs, and it was allowed to be covered. They've got cornhole back there. So they also kind of utilize the back alleyway because they had to redo. This is the one I was thinking of. They had to redo the sidewalk, not the parking lot. It was a sidewalk. All right. So in summary, the rural zone tax credits, the job tax credit, in this business, they created three net new jobs, $2,000 per job. So it's $6,000 per year. The total job tax credit of $30,000 because that's over 5 years. The investment tax credit, 25% of $41,000 they purchased that building for. Well, it seemed kind of small but long. So that was $10,250 in investment tax credit. So it's prorated for them. It was prorated over 5 taxable years because they were under the pre-2025 change to 3 years. So that was $2,050 a year for 5 years. Their rehab credit, they spent $69,700 in renovation costs. And 30% of that is $20,910. And over 3 years, that's $6,970 a year. The first year of the tax credits equaled $15,020, and total tax credits that were earned could equal $61,160. So this is one example of what one business did.
Thank you for giving me that, or giving us this. This is great. But now, has this
thing.
all changed from 5 years to 3 years?
Just the investment. Investment used to be 5, now it's 3.
Okay, so the investment's
So-
3 years, but on the other hand, if it's investment and, someone's front loading and they do the expenses, they're going to be able to take that credit in that 3 years. So
Yeah.
don't get
Yep.
bothered by that. But this is
Yeah,
great.
so it's
Fabulous. Thank you.
better than having to wait 5 years. You get it, like you said, in 3 years, short amount of time.
This is great. Thank you.
Sure. So are there any questions related to the credits? Why don't we take a quick 10-minute break? Come back at like 11:20. And keep going. Let me stop sharing my screen. So I guess I'll see you back at 11:20.
Sure, thanks.
Sure thing.